get us both together. And our mission is simple: to help you stop floating through life and start living a life with purpose, clarity, and action. So we have some serious subject matter today. I'm going to have my first guest, which thank you very much, John.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Cool thing here. We've been talking about suicide and people taking their own life because we had somebody in our circle do that. So I've reached out, like I would hope you would do out there in computer land or wherever you're listening to this, podcast land. When you need something, reach out to the people that you know who can help you with that. John here is got quite the history. He was in the Marine Corps. He was in Army. He was overseas. He's a combat veteran. He worked as a first responder for suicide recovery or suicide responses. He's been in the mental health industry for a long time. He currently works full-time in the mental health industry, and I'm super privileged to have John join us here. With that, John, if you could tell us a little bit, real about your background and why should we listen to you, you bald-headed dude? What makes us how do you get to be, quote unquote, an expert in this field?
Man, I don't even expert. That's like such a title. It's not that I have all the answers. I just, made all those mistakes previously. I struggled and went through those things on my own. I had education, which made it worse, like really trying to understand and track where my head was at, where things were at, what was going on. Sometimes it even made it worse, having that as almost a, better kind of mentality. And it was still a struggle. So anyways, I come at you in a good way. Let's see, you identified, I'm a prior service, I served in the Marine Corps and in the Army, served during Desert Storm. I was in the Marines at that time. It was not a Desert Storm veteran. I was here stateside, but I was on the color guard in San Diego, and that's the first time I really started to see these connections to life and death. We did a lot of funerals, and everyone was very patriotic, and started to see loss and grief. And that was my first introduction, man. Handing a folded flag to a widow was hugely powerful. And I saw it there. I saw what grief and loss was like in the family. And then took a break in service between the Marine Corps and the Army and grew my hair long. I think that might be when we met, and fighting in bars and riding motorcycles and just kind of on a little path of self-destruction. I needed to get my head right and get redeemed, and I wanted to go back to school. I ended up starting a human services program back in early 2000, and needed some financial education benefits. So I re-enlisted after 9/11 and joined the National Guard. I worked part-time as a teaching assistant in a school for kids that were struggling with either probation or parole concerns that kept them from mainstreaming at regular campuses. And then as I pursued my education, and then lo and behold, with this little mental health background and history that I was developing, I deployed to Iraq in 2005, came home in 2007. But there was a catalyst in there for me. Like, I'd seen these kids struggling, and had experienced some loss and quite a bit of loss and grief. And I saw these kids struggling in school, and then here I am in the middle of Abu Ghraib prison outside of a dining facility, and I hear two young Marines talking very casually. And one of them just asked a lieutenant, "Hey, sir, when Smitty smoked that skinny this morning and his friends came out and picked up that weapon," and just as cavalier as you could say, like, "Hey, have you got a light?" He says, "Can we kill those fuckers too?" And I just froze, like, wow. I turned around and I looked to see the faces, and they were just kids, man, just youngsters. Keep in mind, I was in my 30s at the time, and I just thought, wow, we got a generation ahead of us that are going to be destructive, and this is going to affect us. So I kind of set in my mind at that point that I wanted to go back to school. Like I wanted to help veterans. I was already working. I had this mental health angle from working in the high schools, and came home, stayed on active duty for a while, combat instructor, um, trained a bunch of soldiers for deployments, prepared guys for these experiences, and continue to pursue my education. As it came together, man, I got accepted to Cal Poly's master's program for marriage and family therapy. I did that 3 years. I was a school site therapist. I worked with kids. Um, while I was in the Army, concurrently, I was doing psychosocial education, suicide awareness, safety briefs. I became a sexual assault victims advocate while I was in the Army, and everything was good. And then decided, yep, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm doing full time. Here we go. And hung up my uniforms. My son had joined the Marines, and I felt it was time for one of us to be home. And so he was away, and I left the service, hung up my uniforms, and was a full-time student. And then it hit me. I've been home 4 years, 3 years, 3.5, 4 years. And I hung that identity up, man. That Staff Sergeant Bright, that platoon sergeant, that combat instructor, that guy with that stack of ribbons and medals on his chest, and that uniform, and found myself in some really dark places, Dave. Like my behavior, my attitude, my hypervigilance was coming up. My sleep deprivation was coming through. Nightmares were increasing. I was losing that kind of identity. That whole crisis for myself was starting to surface and become something greater than I expected it ever would. Some vicarious. I was hearing some things that I was just I was a door kicker, man. Like my conversations that turned into arguments that were separated by a door became just challenges. Like watch me take this door off the hinge. My behavior was coming to a place that was not, what it needed to be, what I expected of myself, and what I'd promised my wife to be. I wasn't that person. I was struggling. There was a couple of brothers. So go ahead, Dave.
Let me jump in here real quick for our audience. We were both in motorcycle clubs. That was how we became friends many moons ago in different lifetimes for both of us. And what's important that I want to point out here for our audience, Johnny, is that even while you were living the outlaw biker lifestyle, you were still educating yourself.
That was, sir.
You were still thinking about what kind of a man you are. You still thought about how you affected your wife and the people around you. Yeah. As did I. I was in a leadership role, and I felt like, my behavior mattered, and I tried to behave, even in my own addiction and my own craziness, I tried to behave in a way that I felt would model leadership, right? So we've both gone down what I would call parallel paths of
yes, sir.
This journey of learning to be better forms of the men we've always been, right? You're the same hard-headed knucklehead that I've always known. I'm the same. Try and convince me that something that I've set my mind on is different. And, we're going to be talking for a long time. We're not going to roll in the gravel like we used to, because it's a lot harder to heal when you hit me.
Too old for that shit.
But okay, so now here we are. You've gone through these experiences. You've come through. Now you're working daily, helping people.
Yeah.
I find that amazing. I run a construction company. I build places where people can go, and if I'm fortunate, they turn that house into a home. That's up to them. But
yeah, I got you.
you genuinely every day you help people get tools to be better forms of themselves, and as part
Yeah.
of that it comes into what we're going to focus on here in this particular time when we're talking about suicide and the things all around suicide. So
Yeah.
let's go in that direction for a while and just kind of see where this takes us, and
Okay.
we'll just share what you feel is going to help anybody who's going to listen to this.
Yeah. I got you. Well, I want to return to where I was when we stopped there for a minute and just tell you that, I was in this struggling place, man. I was in this darkness. And though I was still, like you said, man, still living that lifestyle and in that kind of struggle and still looking at myself and reflecting that identity that I had wasn't what I thought I needed it to be. And I started to struggle. And it was actually a couple of brothers from the club that you were a part of that showed up at my house one night to borrow a trailer to get a brother off the road with a broken motorcycle, man. And it was one of your guys that actually, I don't know, something that he said to me made me reconsider my thoughts on seeking help, and I did. It was a Thursday night, and Monday morning I was at the VA first thing, and that's when I started really addressing and taking a look at my thing, and my angle changed, my desires changed, and I'm not going to say from there it was all upward, because there was like a firework, man. There was spirals in every which direction after that, but so I'll credit that to him and to that crew that night. But um, as far as helping people, uh, I became a better version of myself and was able to identify. I share often with patients that I talk to, man, like, hey, we often say the things that we needed to hear, and everybody wants to be heard, and somebody needs that piece of encouragement, and no better, teacher than a student. And so I share the things that I needed to hear, things that were important, that made a difference for me, and so I try to encourage folks to kind of get out on that level. But a lot of us, man, meaning just humans, we struggle. Everybody's got issues that keep us down, and your purpose effect, like that, having that purpose, that identified purpose is really, really just one of the biggest protective factors that there is, especially when it comes to, you know, um, the way we view ourselves. Our internal critic, man, it's just full of it, distorted thinking in the way that we function. You look in the mirror and you see one thing, man, and your thoughts go to the most negative, darkest places, and and sometimes we need to get right with that and just understand, like, positive affirmations, speaking to ourselves. I joke and I might have broke a couple mirrors, man, angry at who I was looking at. I share with patients. I use a little dry erase marker and outline my fist on the mirror. So it's a stupid little silly reminder to just reach out and bump knuckles with myself in the morning in the mirror and congratulate myself for another day. Let's do this. Tie those boots, man. Let's kick this ass. Like, that's the kind of mentality. But when we go through things and we're suffering, and there's a lot of convoluted thinking around suicide, man. People identify it, as it's some kind of weakness. It's not a weakness. It's what we're identifying as a solution. And, people identify this solution as being in terms of, the people around me deserve better. They'd be better off without me. And there's a lot of distorted thinkings, or this loss, this sense of despair, that there's, hopelessness for the future. Things aren't coming around the way they need to be. I believe that mental health by itself is really primarily around relationships and comparison. And mental health is an important factor in your mental wellness. There's John Gottman's a psychotherapist, analyst, whatever, and researcher, and he's got a program about couples and relationships, and he talks about having a love account wherein your interactions with your partner are significant, and throughout the day you do these little things to buy love and favor. However, there's opportunities where Maybe your relationship is being taxed at some level, but you've got this account that's been built up, so you have some credit reserves, and you end up you have that bargaining room, so there's a little bit of auto forgiveness and acceptance, like, well, this person does this for me, so I forgive them for this transgression. And the whole thought process behind it is great, but you really need to do that kind of thing for yourself too, for just to maintain a good wellness and identify, like, if you follow the 12 steps, step 10 says, continue to take a personal inventory. And when we're wrong, we promptly admitted it. But I like to add on there, but when you're right, man, give yourself some credit for that. Like, take advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, this is a behavior that I'm demonstrating today, and I should sustain this for tomorrow. Like, that helps build that emotional bank account with yourself, when you're doing the right thing.
So when we're being hard on ourselves and we're in this dark place, we're not thinking, oh, I'm going to harm myself. I'm going to kill myself. I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, I'm going to make the world better because I'm such a mess. I'm messing everything up I touch. Everything I'm involved in goes bad. World would be better without me. My wife would be better with someone who's better than I am. My kids would be better. All of these things. So and I'm just kind of going over this in my head because I just want to say it out loud. It's not, I don't think that anybody says, I'm going to kill myself to make it easier for myself. I think
Right.
it's the desperation of, I can't make it any better. I can't fix it any more than I already have. I'm out of options. And I guess the summation of it would be, it's a complete loss of hope.
It is a complete loss of hope. And that, like I said, that despair, man, that state of despair, like, there's no getting better than this. A lot of times so we use a screening process in crisis and say, hey, so when you have these thoughts, are they fleeting or are they persistent? Do they come and go? There's some experiences that people have in depression, man, where these thoughts are regular and random and they just appear, like, man, I don't care if I wake up tomorrow or not. And the rumination in those places, though, is where it becomes super negative and dangerous for the individual, or the person becomes a greater risk. A lot of time in these screening processes, we have these conversations, and it really comes down to asking the simple question: is like, is it that you want to end your life, or is it that you would prefer not to live the way that you are? And people say, oh, I'd prefer not to live the way that I am. And then we have to look at other factors too, like substance, alcohol, like how much is this paying, playing a role in this kind of, crisis situation at the time? What is it that's happening? Is there a recent, precipitating event that's come up? Is there a loss, of grief, an arrest? Is there accusations? Is there, a divorce? Is there relationship issues? Like all of these things. And then we have to look at those and identify, well, what are the curative factors that we have? What are the protective factors that we have? You've got, family, you've got children, you've got a job, you've got these things. And sometimes, the depression could be something that is legitimately present in their life that's never been treated. And an installation of hope might be able to share a personal story and say, I suffered from this anxiety, or I suffered from this kind of depression, and this individual has, and there's things that we can do to mitigate these kind of extremes. More often than not, though, when somebody gets to that level, at least in my experience, I didn't often experience somebody who was brand new to mental health, and this was a brand new break. It was always something that had been a chronic situation that had been some, great over time. The acute situations of crisis, or when they're going through it in that moment, that were new, was generally something that they hadn't identified was going on. And then, with veterans, it's a little different too. I think it with all people, however, but with veterans, there's a higher than average risk compared to the civilian populations because our stressors were so much more complex. And when I say veterans, I identify that as being outside of my norm and who I am. But anybody who's got an extreme culture where there's high stressors, and I'll say it, in the outlaw community, in the criminal community, in law enforcement, in firefighting, and in military service, and just high risk occupations in general, there's a lot of higher than average risks involved with their main existence, and sometimes outside of that, there's a shortcoming of validation, like they're not getting the things that their complex stressors are not the same as the average, individual experiencing depression or depravity, or they're going through some kind of relationship issue. But I'm talking day-to-day hypervigilance, post-traumatic stress, victims. Like these are things where, they're outside of their control. You have no control over these kind of experiences. Right. And so sometimes that loss of control is overwhelming. That's what brings us to these negatives. Another factor is on a regular in my work, we have folks that will come into the treatment facility and they will, based on their assessments, demonstrate that they are at a moderate or a high risk for suicidality, meaning that they've had an event within the last 3 months or within the last year. And then at some measures, whether in their lifetime they've had a suicidal attempt or, so forth. But more often than not, and this is not a rule by any means, like I said, once again, this is my personal experiences, is that I'd say, greater than 9 out of 10 individuals experience suicidal ideation, like when they're coming down off of a high, their dopamine, serotonin levels are off, they're intoxicated, they become, that amorous, resentful, remorseful type, individual when they're coming down out of their euphoric state, and the extremes are more than they want. We substance abuse, man, to escape underlying issues. And when we're medicated, if you want to call it that, we're in another place, man. Like, we're loaded. We're avoiding reality. We're escaping. We've got the euphoria. We've got that liquid courage. We're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and or we're in such a state where nothing matters, right? And we get to that place, and then when we're coming back, then reality becomes another function, and we start to really look at it and say, man, back to my life, and I'm stuck with it just like it is, man. And I have to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I want to escape. So coming into sobriety creates a problem all by itself. It's hard to deal with those underlying issues, though, while somebody's still under the influence or intoxicated. It's hard to do it.
Hard to identify when I know with my own experiences, when I'm hiding from my own reality and I was living in my addiction and my self-destructive period, I couldn't see when I wasn't loaded. I couldn't see anything except for the darkness.
Yeah.
Right. All I could see was what I didn't have. I couldn't find the positive in anything at that time. And when I had my darkest moments and my thoughts that, never got pushed past that point, I was able to be reached because there was still enough people in my life that acknowledged me and validated me. But what I'm seeing is that even with that, sometimes when you hide the darkness, you get a person who looks really good on the outside, who's doing really well, and then you hear a story about this person, killed themselves, and it's like, wow, how did we miss the clues? Well, there were no clues, right? Because they hid it so well. it's like the closet alcoholic. You know, you never see them have a drink, you never see them drunk, but they're an alcoholic. You know,
Yeah.
and when I was like a closet emotional person. I had all my emotions behind closed doors. Out around you guys, I was dead to the world. And
Yeah.
that I think when people lose that hope. So as I'm listening to this and thinking it through, if you're out there and you're in that dark place and you can't see a way out, go around people. Don't isolate yourself.
Oh,
Even if you're
isolation, inactivity, man. Those are the two things, man. And loneliness and the devil's playground and those idle hands, man. Like, just you think about those two things, that isolation, inactivity. Those are, man, those are protective factors that I include in every continued care plan with patients that were, are trying to step into a life in recovery, man. Is, what are you going to do with yourself, man? You have to have some purpose. You have to keep your hands busy. You have to keep your mind busy. You have to find purpose and validation in doing things for yourself and good stuff. Like, you can't rely on other people or outside factors to make you feel good about you. You have to do these things. And if you're going to sit back and ruminate about your negative factors or the negative things that you've experienced in your life, or even more so, those burnt bridges, if you're going to sit and ruminate on those instead of realize, man, hey, this is the line in the sand. I need to focus on what's happening on that side. It sounds cliche, but that one day at a time, only for today mentality is effective in that moment. But you've also got to have that forward focus. You've got to really, I say this, man, I tell folks all the time, look, I like to ride motorcycles. I like to ride fast motorcycles. And some of us can ride motorcycles fast, and there's a fucking difference. If you're not somebody who can ride motorcycles fast, you're dangerous, right? So anyone can ride a fast motorcycle, but can you ride a motorcycle fast is something different. And when you're doing that, there's only two reasons to look in the rearview mirror: red and blue lights. That's it. If you're riding a motorcycle, you need to be focused on what's in front of you, or you're going to get in a wreck. I mean, you'd ask anybody, and you know this greater than any, that if you focus in that mirror while you're riding a motorcycle, you're going to die. Like, you cannot succeed if you're looking in that rearview mirror, reflecting on your past. You can glance every now and then to see where you've been, and maybe in a moment to rejoice or reflect. But if you focus in that place, that's dangerous. And the same thing, the mind is the same way. It's just like that fast motorcycle. And you've got to be able to come away from that and have that purpose. And people ask, well, how do you know what your purpose is? Hey, your purpose can be finding that thing that you excel in, the thing that you are appreciative of, that thing that makes the world to you. I feel guilty sometimes when I say this, but my wife rides motorcycles too, man. And this, as silly as it is, man, her and I went to war with each other, with the world, just all the way up until that incident happened with me in 2018. There was some struggles, man. And I would brag that, hey, my old lady rides like one of the fellas, dude. Like, she'd jump on her motorcycle and we'd be riding together. And I love riding with the brothers, man. Riding with the brothers was cool. And always, the pack, I don't have to explain this to you, man. Yeah. But I never felt more comfortable than I did just rolling with my old lady on a leisurely trip to a hotel for a weekend, or, just riding with her was cool. But when we'd be in the groups, man, she'd ride like one of the fellas, splitting lanes, rolling that outlaw speed, man, just moving from, and
I remember.
Then we had a chance to ride with a couple of people that just made me or her or both of us uncomfortable. She's like, I'm going to get on the back. I don't want to be part of that. Like, I trust you, but I don't want someone else raising my daughters. Mm-hmm. I had brothers that I rode with would tell my son, your dad's crazy, right? Like, dude's got a death wish. And to the point where my son had to ask me at one point, Dad, like, I know you've had some struggles, man. Like, hey, but for real, like, do you want to die? Like you, I said, no, man, I'm just comfortable riding, and I don't ever put, Tanya in jeopardy. I wouldn't put you in jeopardy, but I push my limits, man. I'm comfortable. It's not a death wish. I just, I've lived my life. And it got kind of a deep conversation. But then when my wife said that to me, she said, I don't want anyone else raising my daughters. I was like, wow, broad just took all the fun out of my whole mentality. She ruined it. And I started thinking about it, and we'd come to a place where our relationship was stronger again. And I thought about it, and man, I don't want anyone raising my daughters either. And I don't want anybody sleeping next to my wife. Like that's my purpose. So I found that piece of purpose, and it was to go back to a more shepherd mentality than the wolf, come away from that wolf lifestyle and come back to that more shepherd approach to things, and looking at, I wanted to be the wife or the husband, excuse me. I wanted to be the husband to my wife that she deserved. I wanted to be the father to my daughters that I wanted them to look for in a partner. I wanted to be the role model that my daughters saw in their comparison to their relationships, man. Like, no, Dad, that's how it should be. Anything else is unacceptable. So for me, that purpose is there. And I tell you, I feel a little piece of guilt about that because I've got 3 grown sons, man, that maybe I didn't model the best way I could have.
Well, Johnny, you just said it, man. Don't look in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's behind you. But what you can do, and what we are doing, and what what's really striking my heart as we're coming towards the end of this first conversation of which is going to be many, because you ain't getting out of this. You're going to be helping me with this.
I got you, Dave.
This craziness that Alicia and I are doing here that we're calling the purpose effect has been saving people's lives within themselves forever, right? We're just putting a name on it and calling attention to it. And anybody out there who's listening to this, your purpose is there. I don't know what your purpose is. I don't even necessarily know you personally. We may just be Facebook friends or passing glances or strangers that you came across this subject and it touches you. But having purpose with some goals so that you have not only purpose, right, but you have reason, right? You were just sharing with us that your reason is to be a good shepherd to your family, to be a good leader to your daughters, a good example. And then that goes out. It comes into concentric circles because other people, because of your work, are going to witness, hey, that's Mr. Bright. That's Johnny, whatever your title at that moment is going to be. And they're going to go, I like the way that guy does stuff. I'm going to emulate that because he's far from perfect, but he's real and he's honest. And he has a purpose.
That's it, man.
And I just want to share so much that every single one of us is valuable.
Oh, there's immeasurable value in every individual, man. Like, people just don't understand the impact that they have. I encourage patients in treatment, man. I say, these are 4 things that are going to help make you successful. One of them is my own thing, but I tell them, man, be present, be aware, be kind, and be on time. But being present, meaning if you're in the room, be in the room. Hey, put down that social media, put down your phone, and it doesn't have to be 24 hours a day that you're disconnected because you're so present. But I mean, like, take these times, man, deliberate, intentional acts. Those kinds of things make a difference, man. Giving somebody your time, in giving yourself the opportunity or that time. So, be present, be in the room. If you're in the room, focus on that. awareness, man. Be aware of the impact that you have on others and that they're having on you. Like that's super huge, man, especially in terms of recovery or mental health. Um, I'm not a big triggers guy. I don't really like the word, man. I think, we identify a trigger as something that, for me, I hear the word trigger, I think six gun, like it's just reactive. It's not about, something that you wear on your sleeve, man, to make an excuse. But, just have that awareness of yourself and others. The next one, man, is being kind. First and foremost to yourself and then others. You can't love others. You can't be good to people if you're not good to you. If you don't really understand what it's like to have somebody be generous and be gracious for you, you have to do it with yourself. And once you get to that place, and then you can share that with others. It's like that anecdote of the airplane, man. When the oxygen drops, put the mask on yourself, then help others. Or you'll just have two people oxygen deprived, right? And then the last one is time, beyond time. And for me, that's just a little bit of, it's a metaphor, but it's an actual for me. Like, don't show up late to my classes. Okay. But even more so, it's hold yourself accountable. Hold yourself accountable to others. Have that reasonable expectation of respect and show up when you're going to show up. If you're going to be present, then get in the room when you're supposed to be there. These are just four little goals that I think help in treatment, but they also help you on the outside, man. Like you have to have this kind of a approach to doing the right thing in the right time, the part about being kind, however, though, that's something that we have to practice from the early morning, when we talk about purpose. I think one of the biggest things in recovery and mental health is often reflection and doing it in the right way, looking at yourself in reality and saying, hey, you know what? I've been doing good. I didn't eat that cheesecake yesterday. I'm not an underwear model and I'm not going to be one tomorrow. And I'm never going to be an underwear model because I eat fucking cheesecake every now and then. You know what I mean? And so that's just not going to happen for me. That's a realistic approach to looking at things, man. I'm being honest with myself and I'm accepting of that, on the other hand, I don't want to look like cheesecake. So I have to avoid them every now and then, but I set smart goals for myself, like something that's actually, the reality is specific goals that you want to achieve. What is it that you want to be part of? Can you measure success in what you're looking at? Is it something achievable? Like, Dave, you and I, no matter how big our hearts or how deep our intellect or how good our spirit or intentions are, me and you are never going to be president. That's just not an achievable thing for us, Yeah. Well, we don't meet the criteria anymore, but like it's not achievable for us. So that's not a smart goal. So don't get twisted on things that you're incapable of doing, but be the better version of yourself, and I don't want to be presidential because I have to be fake. I can't be real, The other one, man, is relevance. And that's at the end of that, that make those goals relevant to what your purpose is. What do you want to achieve? Who are you? What are you trying to accomplish in your life? And then the last one is like time sensitive, time relevant. Give yourself hey, in the next 6 months, I want to accomplish this. And that also puts us a little bit of a contractual agreement with ourselves that we're going to stick the fuck around, man, and be the person we're supposed to be. So
taking care of business.
Yeah, you gotta be able to say that, I'm committed to following through with this, even just for today or for tomorrow or in 3 months, 6 months,
I do these shorts that you can find on social media, all the various platforms. I call them Walks with Charlie Brown. I walk the dog and I talk about little things. And I just did a 10-part series on goals and different things. And then I actually followed it up with an 11th today, because what I forgot to do was talk about that. I do actually believe that daily and weekly goals that are attainable, that you can achieve, and required minimums. I require myself to walk a certain amount every day. I require myself to meditate and pray a certain amount of time every day. I require myself to write every day. I have ambition of writing a book. So those are the things that I require of myself.
Yeah.
And then we come back to where this whole thing that Alicia and I are sharing with everybody and what it's about. So we take our purpose, we come about it with intention, right? And then we alter our perspective so that we can focus our intentions on achieving our purpose, right? So it's like a formula. So purpose plus energy equals motion, or purpose plus intent equals growth. And all of these things as we're moving through are tools to help us improve ourselves, which is a reflection on the entire community around us. So while you're over there working on being the best form of yourself, and I'm over here working on the best form of myself, and your sons and the people you work with and your kids are modeling and seeing your behavior, and they're wanting a part of this, hey, this thing Dad's doing, this purpose thing is pretty cool. And my circle is looking at it, they're going, wow, David's doing something different. I like the changes he's making.
Yeah.
My circle rises and your circle rises. And then randomly, years from now, these two circles start coming together. And we've got elevated humans who are working together instead of just sitting around and going, I don't like the politician you like, so we got to hate each other. I don't like the church you go to. I got to hate you.
Right.
No, actually, I just want to see you be the best form of yourself. You're not me. I don't want you to be me. We're not strong if we're all one.
Exactly.
You know, our uniqueness in the community brings us all more strength. I'm good at certain things. You're good at other things. Together, we're good at a whole bunch more things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Well, Johnny, I want to thank you so much. This has been super informative. I enjoy the insight into more of who my friend John is, because we're going to continue with this. I'm going to make you a reappearing guest on this because you've got information that we need to share, right?
I got you.
That's
cool, man. It's cool.
What's going on?
You know, and I'll say this, man. You talk about writing. You know, I just want to kind of wrap up with this and say, you know, thank you for this opportunity. You know, we do in the program I work in this, we provide patients an opportunity to do what we call a patient talk, you know, and that patient talk is 6 questions about, you know, was there addiction in their family, where they come from, how old were they when they started using, and so forth. Just 6 simple questions. What do you want to achieve out of this? What do you want to take with you? How can we help you do that? You know? And they get up there and they share their story about 4 to 7 minutes, man. But I tell them all the time, my selling point is this. And there's a cathartic value in putting your stuff out and sharing your information, sharing your view, your perspective, your experience, your story to be heard. There's value in that. And there's also an onus of responsibility of the observer. No, our observers in this case are other patients, but to be able to sit still undivided and give them your attention and focus, and to hear somebody else's story has got just intrinsic value all by itself, you know. So I tell them, when you hear yourself say these things out loud, you know, they ring bells for you that will stick with you for a while. So I think the opportunity this morning helped me ring some of my own bells.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
If this has touched you or made you think about things differently, please share it with your friends. Reach up, give us a like, subscribe, and come join us. This is more than a podcast. This is a community. We're trying to build a lifestyle. So let's move forward in the purpose of our lives. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to speaking with everybody soon.